We are only going to test in a few certain ranges. We're going to skip a lot in the book. The ones that I'm most concerned about are radial abduction, palmar abduction, and then MP extension and flexion and IP extension and flexion. There are more in the book. You can disregard those for the time being. All right, radial abduction, remember, is moving the thumb away from the radial aspect of your hand, away. Abduct is to bring away, and radial abduction is to bring away from the radius. Our pivot point here, according to the book, is what we call they say, I think right over the CMC in your book, otherwise known as the snuff box. So that's that divot, and I'll put a picture up, you can look one up online, of where the snuff box is, but it's on the more lateral aspect of your extensor pollicis longus tendon. As a reminder, this is where the name came from, because if you kind of move your hand around a little bit and extend your thumb, you can see a divot that people would snuff drugs out of back in the day. That's where they put their drugs to do snuffing. That's a good way to remember it. Terrible thought. But all right, so we're going to do this. We're going to line up there. Theoretically, you should be standing above your patient so you can really see what you're doing. That's your access point. Your stationary arm is going to line up against the second metacarpal, not the index finger, but the metacarpal of the index finger right there. So that's the second metacarpal, and your movable arm is going to line up with the thumb's metacarpal, or otherwise known as the first metacarpal. So Chad, can you please bring your thumb away from your hand as far as possible? I'm going to keep everything in line with the right axis and the right arms. Again, we're lining it up with the first metacarpal, not with the thumb tip. And so for that, we've got about 45 degrees, which is perfect. Palmar abduction, remember, is that motion where you're bringing the thumb out away from your body. Like you're bringing it away from your palm, I should say, away from your palm, where you're going to go grab a cup. In this case, our axis is going to be the intersection of the first and second metacarpal, not the snuff box, but the intersection of our first and second metacarpal. There's another divot there, but don't let it confuse you with the snuff box. So there's our axis. Again, put a dot on yourself if it helps. Our stationary arm is going to be lined up with the second metacarpal, and our movable arm is going to be with the first. And I think the book says, please move your thumb away from your hand as far as possible. So that's our angle. And we're going to get, again, about 52 degrees, which is great. Then I would move to your finger goniometer. We're going to test extension. I can't sit there, can I? We're going to test extension of the MP and IP first. And so, again, get that to 0 degrees for our starting position, which is straight. We'll help walk around and show you that. This is tough because people have nails, fake nails and real nails. They just kind of bow out. So the best you can, really try to get that axis over the dorsal MP. Line it up so it's pretty flush against the person's thumb, but you might have to move it a little bit lateral to the thumbnail. I'm going to say Chad's is about 0 degrees of extension at the MP and probably about the same at the IP. So we'll say, again, that's pretty normal. Some people will have hyperextension here. Others might have a lack of extension. It's possible. But we'll say, for this example, 0 and 0. Now we're going to measure flexion, which is where our real numbers come in. So the book says, please bring your thumb across your hand to touch the other side. And I think the book, and we'll do it book ways, to keep that IP fairly straight. We're going to keep our axis over the dorsal aspect of the thumb MP, not the side, the dorsal top aspect of it, directly over it, and we get our number, which is 56. And then lastly, they tell you IP flexion. We're going to test it in this position. You'll have to look at the book to see what their verbiage is, but I'll say bend your thumb knuckle up like this. I'll demonstrate it for them. Again, because of the thumbnail, you'll often have to go a little laterally, but stay as dorsal over the top of the IP joint as much as you can. It's usually going to be a larger number, and we have 70 degrees for Chad's thumb IP flexion.